So if you're plugged into the RC world at all and haven't been under a rock lately, you probably know that Arma has now came out with the Typhon Grom. So this is like a 16th scale version of. Now, if you're looking for speed runs and crazy running footage, it's not going to be in this video. We are going to have practical running footage and show you what these things look like kind of out of the box and where my head is and what I plan on doing to each. So check out the entire video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. The Arma Typhon, which is a huge hit for them. Now, previously before this, there was, of course, the Granite Grom, and I've been running one of these for a couple of months now since it's came out. Haven't really done a whole lot to it. My purpose with these cars is probably different than yours. I am looking for a nice, awesome backyard basher, and also I am looking for the coolest dog toy ever. Check it out. So here's the Grom, the Granite, with the upgraded brushless motor and one more tooth on the pinion. You can see that it does good enough for our purposes here, which is a really good dog toy. Sits obviously higher, so when we get into the grassy situations, it'll go through the grass a little bit easier, but you can see it does get slowed down quite a bit, but you know, it's good enough for him, good enough for me. It's fun to bash around with. It is a little bouncy. It does pick up sticks. It does get hung up on certain areas, and it's high enough and big enough for Coda to get in his mouth. Still easy enough to control. But it does all right through the grass. I'm not complaining, except for when it flips like that. That's a good boy, bring it here. I have went through a body or two because of this. So the biggest issue I have had with the Granite, as you can see, is that it's got this body that Coda is able to latch onto and carry all around wherever he wants to. He has stripped the old plastic diffs, which have been replaced, of course, by the metal diffs. That's just kind of a must with these, is that you're going to have to put metal diffs in it eventually. And if you get super crazy on power and everything else, you're probably going to do a lot more. Now, I'm not into like making speed runs out of this thing or putting foam tires or doing any of that stuff on it, but I needed it to be a little bit faster. So in this Grom, what I did was I installed one of the little 380 Titan Traxxas motors in there that gets you about another 3 or 4 miles per hour, as well with going up a tooth on the pinion and adding a fan. That's all I've done besides the diffs, and I just bought the upgraded shocks. Well, just because, you know, that's what we do. So, you know, it's pretty, you don't want to get overwhelmed and crazy with one of these things. The more weight you add to them, the more power you're going to need, and the worse that they are going to perform in the grass. Now, I've actually cut some of the springs and removed the spacers, moved the shock collars all the way up so I can get this thing kind of sitting as low as possible. And when I do that, the ride height, it's about, let's say, 40 millimeters. Now, the Typhon Grom is setting a little bit lower at about 30. Tires themselves, of course, may be skinnier, but they are literally almost the same size. It looks very deceiving, but when you put some calipers on them, the Granite tires might be just a millimeter or two bigger when it comes to the height, but they do not make an overall difference to the ride height of the Typhon. The Typhon actually does sit a little bit lower. And then looking at them from the front as well, I didn't cut any springs or anything yet on this, and the arms are sitting nice and level. The back might be perched up a little bit. Suspension feels really good. definitely a lot thicker than the oil that comes over here, and that's probably part of the handling that we're going to do to just make this a better overall experience. Now we've got brushless motor on the way, the Hobby Wing we're going to try. I already have one of the Hobby Wing 1060 brushless here that we're going to put into it, and we'll put Express LRS receiver in there, something that's really nice and small. I've got these M5 washers here to put in underneath the body mounts so we can raise that body up a little bit to get us a little bit more clearance room. And so far in my testing, he hasn't been able to get his mouth around this one as much as the Granite, which is a good thing. So this is just the Typhon with stock setup, and the dog is definitely not happy. He would love to be out here catching this baby. So out of the box, as people are saying, this thing is definitely a little bit more peppy than the Granite is. I think people are saying like maybe like 23 miles an hour. I'm not gonna put a GPS on it. So we're pretty good with that. Let's see how it does in the grass, because it is got that lower ride height. So yeah, it's definitely bouncing around a lot more and getting held up in the grass, which is kind of unfortunate because that's kind of what I want to do, is bash this thing around in the grass. But you know, maybe that'll help you make your decision a little bit better. Again, with the ride height. Now I wanted to lower it a little bit more to improve the stability like we did with the Granite, but don't want to really do that because then that's gonna just make it drag in the grass even more. So definitely gonna need, you know, some kind of brushless setup or something like that in order to get through the grass a little bit easier. I am going to probably try to run this on 3S to get it a little bit faster. And the reason why is, like, I need it to be faster in the grass. Like you can see, it really gets slowed down in the grass. It's definitely to be determined how much better it's going to perform in the grass. Just because it's faster and it can cut through the stuff a little bit more might not be a good thing, because of its lower center of gravity and lower ride height, it might catch those bumps and lumps a lot more. Being a little bit lower doesn't really seem to help as far as how it's flipping and stuff, because when it's hitting bumps, it's basically just upsetting the car and rolling it over. But it's pretty preppy. Whoop, and the shorter grass, we don't want that in our... Out of the box though, I think it's definitely more stable and stays upright more than the Granite does. So what that is telling me is that it definitely is probably a better platform to spend the money on for upgrades if you want to. So you throw the brushless system at it and maybe some aluminum parts to kind of get the CG down a little bit more on this thing. Maybe one of these days someone would make an aluminum chassis, which would probably help out. But yeah, you can see, you know, that's a nice flip. I'm sure the Granite would have ended up on its side or upside down on that one. But yeah, and this heavy stuff, I'm like full trigger down there and not having a lot of success. Resulting in a lot more flip overs and a lot more frustration. So before I go super crazy on it, you know, we'll have all that in mind. The good thing is though, is that I can always just put everything over here in the Granite, even though I want the Typhon to really turn out well. I just like the way that it looks and feels, and you know, it drives really, really well straight out of the box. So you cannot beat the experience that you're going to get. Now, one thing I'm going to have to do is figure out what battery to get. So been doing some measurements and stuff inside here along with the receiver. So that way we know we're going to have to put the receiver over on the same side as the battery. So the receiver is going to be up here or back here generally is what people have been doing. And then we'll be able to put a shorter battery in there. Now I have some 3S 1100 milliamp crawler batteries that I think should work just fine in here, but I'd like to also just try to keep 2S. 2S is probably going to be fine. From what I've seen on the road, 2S will get you like at least 40 to 50 miles per hour, and I don't need this thing to be any faster than that. And I don't want to go again and start slapping a bunch of aluminum on it, weighing it down and making it more of an issue. I never broke a single part yet on the Granite. With him chewing on it, the only thing that I've went through is some body. So that's just kind of where we're at with this little thing. So come back to the channel, check everything out. We'll have stuff rolling in here within the next week or two, hopefully, and we can get this thing converted over and see what we can do to it and see what the dog can or cannot do to it. So appreciate you guys. Peace.